From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, January 23rd, 2023. Check in with temperatures here early Monday morning. The coldest air continues to be off to our north and to our east. We're going to see some of that air working its way in here as we get toward early next week, January 28th. Right now, looking like the ballpark time frame for some much colder air to work its way into Western Canada. Over the next 5 to 7 days, the precipitation pattern going to be very much like this. Little corridors of very light, generally inconsequential snowfall, maybe a couple inches of snow accumulating here, especially I think Thursday and Friday across eastern portions of the prairie. But by and large, the next 5 to 7 days, look for these little clipper systems making their way from northwest to southeast across the Western Canada. Now we can kind of visualize that with the pattern here. The jet stream splitting across the Pacific. We've got a northern branch doing something like this, and then a stronger southern branch coming in across portions of the southern and eastern United States. So what really happens here is these little clipper systems ride over the top of the ridge here. They come through the prairie, bringing light snow, dive into the plains, and then here's where they link up with some of these stronger systems coming in across the southwest, and we get heavier, more organized precipitation across portions of the eastern United States. What we get across the prairie, again, light, inconsequential doses of snow, shots of cold air, right back to that La Nina pattern. So here we see it with the NAM model over the next 4 days. This takes us through Thursday. You see the first system making its way through portions of Alberta and southern Saskatchewan, eventually into southern Manitoba over the next 36 hours. And then here comes the next system as we get into Thursday and Friday. Total precipitation by type through midday Thursday, January 26th. Again, much of this falling in the form of light snow, but that system that comes in here Thursday into Friday, bringing in some warm air from the south, so possibly mixing with rain here at times across portions of Alberta into southwestern and eventually southern Saskatchewan along the warmer side of that storm system. So through the end of the week, the NAM on the left, European on the right, both with good agreement here. Light snow across all areas of the prairie here. The best chance for more accumulating snow, though, going to really accompany the Wednesday into, it's really late Wednesday, more Thursday into Friday storm system, and especially across eastern Saskatchewan into much of central and southern Manitoba. And still, we're talking about 2 to 6 inches of snow here. Not a crippling, heavy winter storm type event here. Just, again, maybe a little bit more in the way of accumulating snow. And as I take it through the next 10 days, this is the European model, the next 10 days of snow accumulation everywhere here, looking at 6 inches or less, except for maybe some of our higher elevation areas. And then if there's another area that might sneaky pick up some snow, it's going to be the foothills here, a little closer to the Rockies. And this is as that late week storm system comes in here. The storm track does something like this, but then we get a front that sweeps through, and we'll get those winds to kind of come out of the northeast and butt up against the Rockies, and maybe enhancing that snow here as we get toward the later part of the week. But by and large, the next 7 days, expect to see some light snow. Expect it to be pretty light in nature. Now here's the pattern, the overall jet stream pattern. Again, look at this ridge of high pressure working its way north through the next 10 days. That's what sets up that jet stream flow from northwest to southeast across the region. As we get deeper into the end of January, beginning of February, we really see this trough beginning to establish here and maybe eventually replacing the ridge. So what that looks like here over the next 5 days, this is days, today through 5, days 5 to 10 on the right here. You see initially really being dominated by by this ridge, seeing those clipper systems right up over the top of that. As we get into days 5 to 10, that trough is beginning to kind of expand across Western Canada, and then taking it all the way into the beginning of February. Here's where instead of seeing ridging across that region, we're starting to see a trough redevelop, and it may be some time before we get into maybe the second week of February, before we maybe see that storm track maybe reestablish itself to our west and uptick in intensity. But until then, even though we are transitioning colder, this is not a transition into a significantly snowier pattern. It will bring some snow, but it's going to be probably, again, we're looking out days 10 to 14 before I can tell you that we've got a significant snowfall event on the horizon. And what we'll be watching is this Pacific jet streak across the Pacific Ocean coming off of Japan. What we see, though, is I show you the date here. This is the first week of February. This jet streak, it comes in across the central Pacific, but then it just dies. And we see split flow coming out of that, and that's what gives us kind of this disorganized northwest to southeast storm track, clipper systems, shots of cold air. So we'll be watching this jet streak, watching for the next time it's able to extend a little bit further across the Pacific toward the western coast of North America, and that would then reignite that storm track across portions of the western U.S. and western Canada. So we'll look into maybe week 2 of February for that. Until then, here's the storm track, riding over the top of the ridge, bringing in those light doses of snow over the next couple of weeks. What I want to show you here, though, is let's bring it back. Let's look at the next, 3-4 days. Here come these little clipper systems making their way from northwest to southeast. Here's the midweek system, Thursday into Friday. You see the better chance for accumulating snow across the east. Watch what happens, though, as this system makes its way through. This is where we get that little front that extends back across portions of Alberta, where maybe we could see some of that snow linger into the weekend across the foothills, across portions of western and southern Alberta. Behind that, though, we're going to see higher pressure. I would imagine it's going to be a colder, quieter start to next week, and then that's where we can start looking towards the other side of that. When does the pattern reestablish here? Likely after the first week of February. Whoa, September. Where am I? It's likely going to be mid-February before we see that storm track start to ramp back up. So this is around February 6th, 7th, and 8th. No detail to be really, drawn from this other than that's when I think we'll shake that cold high, maybe get temperatures to moderate, and then also work in some higher snowfall chances. So we are speculating here for maybe a snowier mid-February, but again, until then, I know we've been talking about this pattern transition for the last week or two, knowing we would transition toward a colder and likely snowier pattern, but the snowier aspect of that, just not here in any more than these light doses. So looking at the probability of picking up more than 3 inches of snow over the next 7 days, so taking us into early next week, this includes all of the clipper systems this week. A couple things stand out. The first thing here is that anywhere getting 3 inches or more is going to be rather localized in nature. Just about everyone with that chance for light snow, but 3 inches or more, you're going to be one of the lucky few. Where I think those lucky few are going to be, again, portions of western and southern Alberta, where we get that extended snow through the weekend. And then I think a little bit further east across the prairie, portions of eastern Saskatchewan into central and southern Manitoba, a little bit better of a chance to pick up a couple to maybe 3-4 inches of snow from this Friday storm system that brings in the much colder air. We can see that here. We look at the temperatures in terms of a departure from average. There it is. Coming in next week into early next week, we'll see warmer temperatures over the next 4 to 5 days, but then over the weekend into early next week, much colder temperatures work their way in. What does that look like here in Calgary? Those highs above zero through Friday, but then dropping off on the other side of January 28th. Those highs then now around -10, the lows around -20. Similar in Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, and the same picture here in Winnipeg. This will be a widespread shot of cold air. Look at these temperatures in Winnipeg, a little bit colder even in the east, and it may be exacerbated by maybe some fresh snowfall. Even if it just is a few inches there, that can really help drag those temps down. Looking at lows in Winnipeg around -30 early next week through the week, or the weekend into early next week, and then those highs in the lower -20s. So over the next 5 days, light doses of snow. This weekend into early next week, much colder. Then looking for that pattern to reset. If we're going to see significant snow, it's going to be coming in February. Have a great week.